everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Training Unleashed. We're going to have a great day. But before we get going, on behalf of the Learning Network, I want to welcome all the audience and the listeners. Without you, we wouldn't have a show. I also want to recognize our sponsors, C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio, and remind people you can check us out on YouTube, and we're Training Unleashed Network, and subscribe. Today, we got a great guest. His name is Jake Thompson. He's with a company called Compete Every Day, and he is a true thought leader in the idea of how to be successful. Jake, my first question is around your philosophy of Compete Every Day. In a world where we increasingly talk about collaboration, how do you reconcile competition and teamwork and collaborative success all at the same time?
I think competition and collaboration go hand in hand. If you think about, say, a sports team, right? The team works together, collaborates to compete against the opponent. Organizations collaborate to compete in the marketplace. But really, the core philosophy for us with it is the idea of every day you're competing with yourself, your own best, your previous bar, because that allows you to bring your best self to the workplace every day. And from a leadership perspective, it's really foundational that if you're not leading yourself, you're going to have a really hard time leading others. And so we see competing every day with yourself as kind of that foundation to having ultimate team success, because when everybody's bringing their best every day, magic starts to happen in the workplace.
So let's build upon this competing with yourself concept, which I think is a brilliant way to phrase it and a great idea, because we always have to keep getting better. We always have to keep challenging ourselves. What are the key takeaways? If I'm listening to the show and I say, okay, I want to compete with myself, how do I do that?
Yeah. There's really two big pieces to doing it effectively, right? The first is to have targets. Like, you have to know what you're going after, where you want to improve in order to do that, right? A lot of people, we set goals at the beginning of the year in January of, I want to lose weight, or I want to make more money this year. And we just kind of leave it out there as that. And are you wanting to lose 1 pound, 10 pounds, 100 pounds? Like, what is the target? Because once you set a target, then you can actually put a plan to pursue it. And then you can evaluate, did I hit it? Did I miss it? Did I do well? What do I need to do better? So you have to have a clear target of where to improve. But the biggest one, the one I think catches most people off guard, is intentionality. We lack a lot of intentionality in our day-to-day life. It's because we get distracted. We get into a rhythm and a routine of going through the motions. And we have the expectation that tomorrow will be better than today. Ask any person in January, will 2025 be better than 2024? Absolutely. It's going to be a better year. Great. What are you doing differently this new year? Well, nothing. We want everything around us to change for the better, but we don't want to put in the work to change ourselves. And so intentionality is a really big component. And it's something as simple in the workplace of, instead of just popping into a meeting, being intentional to say, what is the agenda and what are the outcomes we want from this meeting? Like, that simple shift changes how you show up in a meeting or how you lead a meeting versus, oh, it's our Wednesday, 3 o'clock. What do we have to do? Who's presenting? Like, going in with a set intention and agenda changes how that dynamic goes. So I think having a clear target of where you want to get better, and then understanding the intentionality that's required to improve, because improvement does not happen without intentionality.
Okay, this leads me to two questions. I'm going to ask one, and I'm going to follow up with the second one. And let's just, because this is a business podcast, let's focus on the business side, not
Yeah.
let's focus, on weight or giving up smoking or something like that. How do I go about the process of developing my goals and choosing what my intentionality is?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first question is, what do you want to do in your career? Where do you want to go? If you're a new manager, what is kind of the next 5 to 10 years? You say, hey, I want to be a director. I want to be a corner office, C-suite. I want to start my own company. Like, there's a number of different directions, but you have to know where you want to go. That's always the first question, so you can kind of set the direction. From there, if you are say a mid-level manager and your role is, hey, I want to move to a director level or a regional level, who's in that role now that you can ask questions to? Who can you interview? Who can mentor you? That's why mentorship and being coached is such a valuable piece in terms of development, is because you can ask them, hey, what are the things that when you were in my role, you wish you'd spent more time developing? What are the things that once you got into this role, you realized, oh, I didn't know how to do this and I should have known coming in? What are the things that you over maybe valued coming into this position and you undervalued. When you can learn where that is of what someone in the position has learned, and then here's a better part, if they're mentoring you, say, where do you see holes in my game? Like, where do you see places where I'm not either living up to my potential or not meeting the mark where I should be if I want to get to that next level? That's going to help you set the target, because that's going to allow you to identify the opportunities for growth. From there, it's putting a personal development plan, professional development plan in place to grow of, okay, what are the activities I'm going to do over the next month to reinforce this? At the end of the month, am I going to continue it or am I shifting it? One of the things we love to talk to people is setting a development plan for 4 areas, right? Occupationally, what very much job specific do you want to improve on over the next quarter? Professionally, everything from public presentation skills to negotiation, all things that you're networking, to then from a leadership standpoint, right? Building leadership skills, communication, casting vision, being able to coach and give feedback. And then personally, right? You've got to have a personal goal as well. So that gives you 4 targets every quarter to focus in on of what I'm going to do, how often I'm going to do it, how it's going to improve me, and then who's keeping me accountable. And so this is where you start to develop that rhythm, but it all starts with the curiosity to go back and say, who's doing the thing I want to do? What are the questions I can ask them? Where do they see opportunities for me to grow, develop, shore up weaknesses? And then how can I start putting little bitty actions into place now, even if I'm 5 years away from that role? If I put in the work week over week now, I'm going to be in a really good position by the time I get there for the promotion, or even better, to excel once I step into that new role instead of feeling like I just got thrown in the deep end and I don't know how to swim.
So what I'm hearing you say is you've got to get clarity on what you want and really, think about that. And then once you do that, you've got to kind of do, you didn't say this, but like a gap analysis of
Yep.
what's the difference between where I am and where I'm going. You're encouraging people to talk to other people that have done it before. All great, great things. Coaching is a big part of training. And whether the training department does this coaching or they train managers on how to do this, how would you encourage managers to guide their team, their staff to create, in other words, someone listening to this podcast get the benefit of their listening to this podcast and, this idea Jake has is really compelling. And I challenge people listening, take the time and spend some time with yourself and really think about where you want to go next in life, both personally and professionally. Do a little gap analysis, all great. But we're also sitting back and saying, we work in businesses that we need to inspire others so people have a growth mentality. How do you get the managers to, in essence, coach this to their team?
Yeah, so it really comes down to every organization is going to be very different, right? We know from a cultural standpoint, you might be a manager listening to this, and the rest of your organization has no interest in developing their people, right? It's just get the job done, don't worry about development. You may be in an organization where they truly believe in training, and it's a constant process. Or you could be in an organization where it's a one and done, right? You get promoted, you go through one training, you'll figure out the rest on the way. And so understanding what situation you're in, you can't help. You do, however, have 100% on control how you respond to that situation. And so if you're wanting to take on the responsibility to lead, which is essentially to coach others, regardless of what else is going on in the organization, you have to say, what am I doing to improve how my people work? And the big shift, and you kind of alluded to it, right? Growing these people, you're going to have to understand you're not in competition with the people that report to you, because a lot of people get into leadership or management and they don't want to help the ones fully. They want to see you succeed because they know their success relies on it, but they don't want to help you do that much because you might replace them. And what people with that short-sightedness fail to see is if you can be a manager or leader who develops people, there's always an opportunity, because that is not happening in every organization. So first, it's setting aside that I can't pour everything I have into these people, because if they get to the level I'm at, they're going to replace me. All that means is you're going to have more opportunities because you can develop people. The second piece that's crucial to being able to coach people is to know them. We have to connect with our people before we can coach them, because the old saying, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so this is a overthought. I think we sometimes overestimate how much work this is. And really, it can be something as simple as grabbing a cup of coffee once a week with a different team member. 15 minutes, talk to me about your family, talk to me about your goals, talk to me what do you want to do? Because once you can learn about them, what their goals are, why they work, where their passions are, you can help in those coaching conversations. And so we always start like getting to know people. Then it's helping them create the plan. If you've put your own personal and professional development plan together, it's setting that task with each of your team members because you understand the better they grow, the better work they're going to do, the better work they do, the better their organization thrives. And so setting a consistent rhythm to know your people, setting a consistent rhythm on top of your management meetings, because every one of us, we have our manager meetings, and those, for lack of a better phrase, are never the most enjoyable process. I laugh that for a lot of people, the performance review is like an annual proctology exam. Like you go in and just kind of hear what you're doing wrong, and you get the feedback once a year. Well, how do we improve? Faster feedback loops. And so for us as leaders, what we should look for is, hey, if I have a monthly manager meeting with each individual member, how can I stack on a second one that's strictly coaching? Like a management meeting, Mike Weinstein says this: management meeting, you should walk out of feeling icky. A coaching meeting, you should walk out of feeling inspired. Because in that coaching meeting, it's identifying the gap that you just talked about. And what are the things that you're working on to bridge that gap? And my job as your manager is to hold you accountable to doing those things. And let's talk about where you're having success and where you're struggling. And I want you to leave my office knowing these are the skills I'm improving that are going to help me get to where I want to go. And I've got the support behind me. When you leave the management meeting, it's here's where we're hitting the mark, but here's where we're missing the mark. And what are you going to do to change it? And so when we can create a rhythm of connecting with our people, coaching our people on top of the management that's already happening, then you start to see your people develop because they know you see them as more than a number on payroll. They're not just an expense. They're actually a valuable person on the team. They're getting appreciation and feedback, which we know is incredibly rare. In fact, one of the stats I saw the other day is from 2021 to 2023, 71% of people who left their job without another job in hand did so because of a lack of feedback and appreciation from their direct manager. That's a solvable challenge. And that's a huge cost to organizations from a turnover standpoint. So how do we get that? We know our people, we coach our people in addition to the management that we're already doing.
So I love what you're saying. I totally agree that people want to be coached. They want feedback. The tendency for that negative feedback is that all they receive. And I actually personally have a philosophy of 5 to 1, catch people doing something right for every one time of constructive. Because when you start getting in the habit of catching people on doing things right, they know that they're good at what they do. And then they're really open when you have a suggestion.
That also plays really well into John and Julie Gottman, who are relationship experts. They are the go-to people in terms of relationship and conflict resolution. They very specifically talk about 5 positive to 1 negative because our brains are so hardwired for negative. The negative is a 5 to 1 outweigher. So like 1 negative equals, we have to do 5 positive to balance it out. So I love hearing that. And for everybody who's like, well, 5 to 1, like there's science backing this from a relational standpoint that talks about why that's so important.
And while we're on this topic, because it is a deep passion of mine, your positive has to not be good job. Your
Oh my
positive
gosh,
has to
yes.
be a true acknowledgement where you clearly state what they did well. Because
Preach.
good job just goes over people's head. So,
Why? Because our negative is like, I laugh. The joke with me is my wife can tell you when we were dating a decade ago, something I said on one of our early dates that just she did not like. And she's like, I can tell you, we were sitting at Frankfurt and the Tollway at Mikosina. You said this. I went and told my mom this and my friend. And I was like, that was 10 years ago. She's like, I know. But that's how we are with negative feedback. We can tell you exactly what you did wrong, where you were, da, da, da. But to your point, we always say, oh, you're doing a good job. And it's right over the head. But
so
it's got to be as specific.
yeah. Creating engaging, dynamic e-learning content is more important today than ever. At the Learning Network, we have created a product called Breeze. This is the latest technology in course development. It is easy to use, drag and drop, easy to build engaging content, something that you can create and be proud of, something that you can create that learners will enjoy taking. And it works on any device, totally SCORM compatible. Go to learning.net to schedule a demo today. Learning.net. So, one of the mistakes I made when I was younger is assuming that everyone's ambition was equal to mine.
Yep.
So I constantly said, well, these people all want development, they all want promotions, they all want jobs. And what I learned was that in the performance review part, we could do a whole episode on performance reviews. I would ask people, what are they looking for? And surprisingly, a large number of people would say to me, I love what I'm doing now, and I just want to do what I do now the best I can do it, as opposed to saying, I want a promotion or I want your job, or what I would call competent, satisfied employees that are not looking to grow are very valuable in organizations. People that are looking to grow are very valuable. I'm not saying we want only people that are competent, not looking to grow. That would be foolish. But sometimes when you prod someone to try to go to a level they don't want to go to because they don't want to manage people, for instance, it can be a massive dissatisfier. But at the same token, sometimes those people that are happy, enjoying their job, need to be motivated a little bit more. How do you keep somebody that loves the job they have, does a good job, you're very pleased, but you're green and growing or ripe and rotting. How do you motivate those people to step up and excel even more?
I love it. So the first is understanding your people, to your point. You've got to know which of your people are your high performers, your ambitious ones, and which of the people are okay, just doing a good job. Like they have no aspirations to climb a corporate ladder. Understanding that is incredibly valuable in the relationship piece, right? While we talked about you got to connect with your people first because you got to know. However, they may not want to grow up the organizational chart, but they're still motivated by something. They still love reward, right? They still love feedback and praise. It's understanding what's going to motivate them, as well as are there opportunities in their current role to further empower them? Because people love the autonomy and empowerment in their workforce. So if it's someone in a role that's not going to grow, asking yourself as a leader, hey, what can I do to challenge them just enough that they're going to continue to do better work? Is it a monetary reward? Is it praising more of that process? Because we know rewarded behavior is repeated behavior. Is it finding ways to further empower them into that role to where they may take more pride in the work that they do and want to do a better job? All of these things kind of come of you have to get to know your people, what's motivating and driving them. And once you do that, then it's testing. And a lot of times I think we're afraid to test because, well, what if they don't respond to this? Great. What are they going to respond to? How do we learn and develop? And so looking at your role as a leader, more of a science experiment, especially when it comes to understanding the motivations and drive of people versus a final exam. In a science experiment, you have a hypothesis, you test the hypothesis, and then you do more of it if it worked, or you make an adjustment if it doesn't. And so those are little pieces of it. But trying to force those people to grow into roles or to move up the org chart when they don't want to will create dissatisfaction and may even cause them to leave. The groups you really have to worry about as well are the low performers, right? The ones who are very apathetic, who are disengaged. Those are the ones you got to worry about getting rid of. The really interesting thing that I want to see more on that may be beneficial for those listening is there's research that shows when you sit a, we'll say, mid-level performer, someone very comfortable, near a high performer, their performance increases. Just being in the vicinity of a high performer will improve their productivity and output. So as you're thinking of your talented people that don't really want to grow and within the org, but still want to do a good job, and you want to challenge them to do a better job, think about where they're positioned in your office, especially if you're in the in-person office space, and ask, how can I pair them up or put them closer to high performers so some of that high performance starts to blend off, or they feel motivated to raise up a little bit to keep pace.
Okay, so I'm going to circle back to the beginning of our
Okay.
conversation because this has been some good information, but I want to now go back to the person, right? I'm actually literally talking to the audience listening to us now. So I sat one January 1st New Year's resolution that I have kept. About 25 years ago, I resolved never to make them again. And I've kept that one because you would make them and you would fail. Okay. And we started this conversation where you did a really great job talking about people needing to look at their life, decide where they want to go, create goals for themselves, intentionality. And you even described, like a quarterly review system. How do people keep motivated? How do they self-evaluate? And how do they not give up the diet, if to use that analogy, when they are in essence doing this themselves?
Discipline is the hardest thing in the world, right?
It is.
It is the magic sauce. It is so the first is realizing, for everybody listening, the only motivation you need is the bigger reason, not the daily feeling. Because you're not always going to have, we all have those days, right? We don't want to go into work. It's the discipline that gets us there. But one of the biggest reasons I think that we falter in this regard, and what the losing weight's a great example, working on your professional skills is a great example. We give up, we quit because we fail to track our progress. And when you fail to track progress and you're 4 months down the road and you look at where you're not, because this is a long journey. Growing throughout your career is a never-ending process. And once you get to this platform, there's always another one, right? After this mountain, there's always another mountain. So you're always in this constant state of growing. And it can feel like I'm never, quote, there. And if you don't track your progress of the skills you've developed or how you've grown or how you've improved, then you have nothing to look back on and reference. And what most people do in that moment is, well, I just haven't made any progress and I'm not there. So this is pointless. Versus, I haven't reached there yet, but look how far I've come in my career. This is why a mentor relationship is so incredibly helpful, because they're able to say, hey, look at where you are. Like my own coach, business coach, really got on to me earlier this year because we've had a monster year for our business on the speaking side, but I'm still short of a few goals with a couple of months left to go. And along the way, she's like, why are you kind of frustrated? I was like, man, I don't know if we're going to hit this goal. Like, I've been working hard for it. And she's like, well, what about the rest of this year? And I was like, what about it? Like, we got to get this goal. And she's like, look where you were 2 years ago. Look where you are now. Like, take a second and be proud of the progress you've made instead of simply frustrated by where you're not. Because if you always live in the frustration of where you're not, you're eventually going to get to a point where, like, why is this worth the trouble? Because I'm never there. And I think that's a big deal for people, especially people listening to this, because you're investing in yourself. So you're a high performer who wants to get better. You're looking for tips to improve. And so tracking your progress, tracking what you're working on, the professional development plan, occupational, personal, professional, and leadership skills, just putting that in a binder. And over the next 4 to 5 years, looking back through that binder and saying, oh, this is what I did in Q1 of 2025. And look how better I've gotten at it now in Q3 of 2027. But unless you take the time to write stuff down, you're going to forget the process. It's no different than going to the gym, right? You may not be lifting the weight you want, but you're lifting a lot more than you were 3 months ago. You just tend to forget it if you don't write it down.
Totally love what you're saying. I think it's so important that people enjoy the journey, right? Because I'll be happy when wherever you are, there's always another when. You got to
Yep.
enjoy the process. But what you're really saying is you've got to celebrate the little victories on the way, looking for a mentor. I think sharing goals, letting other people know what you want, because people will rally to you. I joke that I've started many secret diets. I'm not going to tell anyone I'm dieting, but when I lose 10 pounds, I'll let people know. But then, that diet starts the next day and then starts the next day.
Yep.
So getting out there and letting other people know, and asking for help, getting coaching, getting mentoring, all great things, really great information. Jake, this has been a great conversation. And I know our audience would love to know more about you, more about your speaking, more about your company, who are the clients you like to work with, et cetera. So please let us know more about you.
Yeah, best place, excuse me, to connect with me is going to be my website, jakeathompson.com. I'm a leadership performance coach, keynote speaker. I have two books, Compete Every Day, which is very personal development focused because you got to lead yourself. And then my newest one that came out this year, Lead Better Now, is really for those new managers or that management and leader who just still feels like you're drowning. And it's a very much a play guide on or playbook on how to guide yourself from performer to manager, manager to leader. And so it's a quick read with very actionable tips. So if you're kind of listening to some of the things we talked about, the connection piece, the feedback piece, and you want help, would recommend you check them out on Amazon, or you can get both on our website, jakeathompson.com. But otherwise, I'm incredibly honored to hang out with you today. And hopefully our listeners not only were challenged maybe to think about how they're showing up every day a little more intentionally, but they've got something that they can implement immediately in the workplace to help their teams get better, which in turn helps everyone win.
Are your books on audio?
It is. Both of them are on Audible and audiobooks.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So your keynote speaker, what's your top two or three keynotes?
Yeah, so really the two are a lot of the things we talked about. So compete every day, which is how do I get my team to compete with themselves and collaborate with their teammates? And then the influence playbook, which is really on the one of how do I lead myself, connect with my team, and give better feedback. That whole process we just talked about of being specific. So those are the two big ones. We work a lot in sales organizations, so the competitive mindset really kicks in there. Small business owners, and then we do a ton as well in blue collar industry. So manufacturing and construction are a large group for us, especially on the leadership side, because as you can imagine, with a lot of our industries, we do a phenomenal job of promoting individual performers into management and saying, good luck, figure it out. And so we're seeing now a younger generation, especially millennials, that are craving training. And they don't want to just be like, hey, figure it out the hard way because I had to. And so that's been a really fun experience of not only the keynote side, getting to work with those audiences, but taking them through kind of our in-person training programs to build those essential leadership skills and to set them up with those development plans that we talked about of really guiding them through it so that they can go take it back to their teams and put their teams through it.
So I know you have an offer for us, but you also need to say your website a little slower because
Okay.
people mostly are listening. Of course, everyone go to trainingunleashed.net and you can see his website in the description of the meeting.
Yeah, super easy on the website. Jake, Jake, which is my middle initial, Thompson.com. And if you head to jakeathompson.com/scorecard, so that's SCORECARD, what you'll find is what we call the daily competitive advantage. And what it is a simple habit builder. And you'll find 5 things that you'll check the box on every day. And then you'll set your 3 priorities for the day. The reason we do this is very much the old Jerry Seinfeld story of don't break the chain. When he was starting his comedic career, he put a calendar on his refrigerator and every day challenged himself to write a new joke, and he'd put a big red X in the box. The idea is over a few days, your brain starts to see this streak and you're compelled to keep the momentum going because our brain loves to see these patterns. So what we've done is say, hey, what are 5 professional skills on a daily basis you want to build? For some people, it's reading a chapter of a book every day. For some people, it's getting, making sure they get steps. They don't sit at their desk all day. For some, it's have a coffee with a coworker. For another, it's don't start my day in my inbox, which is a dangerous slope a lot of us fall into. But they set these 5 every single day or for every day, and then they X the box and they get to see it and they can score themselves week over week. And then your daily priorities, we say pick the top 3 because a lot of us have a very unhealthy habit of just working off of our to-do list in the order we wrote things down versus the order of importance. And so it forces us to say, what are the 3 actual priorities for the day? The most important ones, start with those. And then tomorrow we'll set new priorities. So if you head to jakeathompson.com/scorecard, you can download your very own scorecard, and then you'll get a handful of videos that'll teach you how to use this to build better habits as a leader so you can go make a bigger impact in the workplace.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like a fantastic giveaway. I mean, I'm just sitting here listening to it, and my first thought is, and fortunately for me, my kids don't listen to the show. So when I say this, I wish all my kids would go to your website and download your giveaway. So, Jake, we always end the show with our guests sharing their one tip. They would, if they give you just one idea, what would that one idea be?
Yeah, the one idea I'm always going to go back to is put in the intentional, uncomfortable work to lead yourself more effectively if you want to lead others. Simply put, we can't inspire others to be better, coach others to be better, get others to be better unless we're modeling what better looks like. Because no one is inspired by what's the same. They're inspired by seeing someone do something and get something different. So, my encouragement to you is to be more intentional with how you show up and develop yourself personally and professionally every day. And what you'll do is you'll start to model the example for others that will then open doors for allowing you to help coach them up to be better too.
Excellent tip. Really great tip. Jake, on behalf of the Learning Network, thank you for being a guest. The audience, thank you for being here. Thank our sponsor, CCTV, CC Radio. Remind everyone to check out our YouTube network. It's very new. Training Unleashed Network. You can subscribe. You can actually watch this in video, or of course, you can go to C-Suite TV and watch it on video. And of course, our website, trainingunleashed.net. Everyone have a great day.